The flat southern region of Nepal, the Terai, is known as Madhesh in Nepalese language, and its indigenous inhabitants are called Madhesi. Economically, the Terai is the most fertile and productive region of Nepal, where agriculture dominates. The main agriculture products are rice, jute, sugar, mustard, tobacco, herbs, and spices. Most of the agro-based industries are in Terai. In addition, Terai region is rich in forestry. Madhesi are Nepalese of Maithili origin. It is the same Mithila where King Janak, father of goddess Sita, heroine of Hindu epic Ramayana, had their rule. In the mid-western Madhesh, Sakya kings ruled in 600 BC. The Buddha belonging to Sakya dynasty was born in 563 BC. Similarly, kingdoms were established in Simraugarh in the present-day Bara district. In Madhesh, several kingdoms were established and ruled by many dynasties, which all perished with time and were abundant and the land converted into forests. Along with the time, Sen Karnatak, Mughal emperors, British East India Company, and at present, Nepal have held the governance of Terai respectively. Talking about the history of Terai, different groups of the Hindus escaped from Indian subcontinent and took asylum in western hilly region of Nepal to protect their life from attacks of Muslim invaders in India. Among these groups of refugees, Sen group became the ruler of Palpa at first. Mukunda Sen of Sen rule occupied the land and he started his rule in the area of Rajpur and Tilpur by paying tax to Abad King Nabab of Kaushal Janapat. Mahadatta Sen had ruled under the larger area of western Terai by paying tax to Abad King Nabab Asful Daula. Sen rulers had also ruled Terai by paying tax to Muslim rulers. In the period of 1513 to 1774 AD, Sen rulers had extended their regime to Palpa, Makwanpur, Chaudandi, Bijaypur, Morang, and others. Modern Mithila kingdom had its presence as different names, sometimes Mithila, sometimes Tirhat, sometimes Makwanpur, and so on. The ancient geography of Mithila region stretches from Kosi river to Ganga river to Himalayan to Brajbhumi. Makwanpur in its time was the most prosperous kingdom of the region. Makwanpur had its origin even before the Nepal kingdom was born. King of Mithila, Hari Singh Dev, defeated by Mughals in 1324 AD, arrived in Badgaon, present-day Bhaktapur, and formed an army of Mithila. King Prithvi Narayan Saha, the founder of Nepal, was quite intelligent and married the princess Indra Kumari Devi of Makwanpur. The king at that time was Hem Karna Sen, king of Makwanpur. At the age of 14, Prithvi Narayan Saha was married with 12 years old Indra Kumari, the daughter of King Hem Karna Sen of Makwanpur, with a view to get some help of arms and ammunition from Makwanpur. The marriage ceremony was held in Makwanpur. After the marriage was completed, Prithvi Narayan Saha wanted to take his wife with him. But according to the custom of Makwanpur, she was not to be sent to her husband's immediately after the marriage. Prithvi Narayan Saha came alone to Gorkha. After some time, Prithvi Narayan Saha went Makwanpur to take his wife. But a dispute arose between Prithvi Narayan Saha and the king of Makwanpur, and Prithvi Narayan Saha left again Makwanpur alone. When the king of Makwanpur heard that Prithvi Narayan Saha had ascended the throne of Gorkha, he invited him to visit Makwanpur and take his wife with him. Prithvi Narayan Saha went to Makwanpur, but no good understanding between the two kings could be established. It so happened that the soldiers of Makwanpur saluted Prithvi Narayan Saha without removing their shoes. Prithvi Narayan Saha considered this as an insult. So, in a fit of his passion, he beheaded some of them with his sword. At this, there were serious exchanges of hot words between Prithvi Narayan Saha and the prince of Makwanpur, Digbandhan Sen. Prithvi Narayan Saha returned to Gorkha empty-handed with a revenge in his mind against Makwanpur. Sen rulers had also ruled Terai by paying tax to Muslim winners. In the period of 1513 and 1774 AD, Sen rulers had extended their regime to Palpa, Makwanpur, Chaudandi, Bijaypur, Morang and others. The Terai territories expanded from Parsa to Mahatori were a part of Makwanpur state. The forests of this area were inhabited by numerous wild animals. The Mughal emperors therefore had accepted 2 elephants annually as tribute from Makwanpur. However, when the Nawab of Bengal and Bihar declared themselves independent from the disintegration of the Mughal Empire following the death of Aurangzeb, the administration of Patna demanded cash instead of elephants. They eventually raised the amount of the tribute to rupees 12,500. Payment of the tribute was discontinued when Prithvi Narayan Saha occupied Makwanpur, including its Terai territories. The British had brought Bengal and Bihar as well as Oudh under their control. It was out of fear of the British that Prithvi Narayan Saha hurriedly occupied Makwanpur. In 1743 AD, Prithvi Narayan Saha started to extend the Gorkha state by bloody army campaign. Step by step, he attacked and captured various historical republics of indigenous people. Prithvi Narayan Saha defeated the Sen dynasty kings of Madhesh and then won Kathmandu Valley. When Prithvi Narayan Saha in 1768 AD attacked Kathmandu, Jayaprakash Malla, king of Kathmandu, had 12,000 strong Mithila army that was known as Tirhut army. Tirhut armies sharply defended against the organized army of Prithvi Narayan Saha. After defeating Kathmandu, Prithvi Narayan Saha terminated the Tirhut armies from army force. The kingdom of Vijaypur was conquered by Prithvi Narayan Saha in July 1774 AD. Kingdom Vijaypur was situated between the Kosi river in the west and the Tista river in the east. In 1774 AD, in addition to army force, King Prithvi Narayan Saha defeated and dismissed to army ruler of Makwanpur by pretense, fraud and conspiracy and captured Eastern Terai. For extending their rules over the Eastern Terai like Sen rulers, Prithvi Narayan Saha had also committed to pay tax to the Muslim emperor. After defeating Eastern Terai and control over the land, Prithvi Narayan Saha started to terminate the Tirhut soldiers of Terai from his force. Then, all the Terai people were excluded from the security force. Prithvi Narayan Saha demolished the Tirhut army upon conquering it. Then, enrolling Madhesis in army had been stopped and it had been continued in the later regimes. Madhesis has felt not inclusion in the national army as an insult. Though Makwanpur was integrated in Nepal, its integration was just geographical. The cultural and historical integration has never occurred. People of Mithila kingdom were never accepted in mainstream of Nepal. They were never given the administrative power. The result in today's divided psychology of Nepalese. People of then Makwanpur kingdom are treated as outsider in this term. Land in Terai was snatched from the real owners of the land who were Terai people and was captured and distributed to royal family members, relatives, armies, officers and other employees as gift, birtha, mat, jagir, etc. and Terai people who were the real owners of the land were compelled to work as land tillers. Like Prithvi Narayan Saha, after his regime, his successors continued the same policy to treat Terai people. After the downfall of Mughal Empire and rise of British power, Saha kings of Nepal used to give elephants to British rulers every year as a tax. Up to 804 AD, Saha ruler of Nepal had extended its territory in Testa river in east, Sajjal river in west, mountainous range in north and Ganga river in south. The Terai was the major financial source to bear the cost of Nepali Shah rulers. The fund was supplied from Terai to maintain the cost of war in the time of extension of Nepali territory, cost for enjoyment and joy of the Saha rulers, and other necessary administrative costs. Terai land tillers had been suffering from cruelty, injustice, and inhuman behavior of Saha rulers and subjected to monetary exploitation in fulfilling rulers' interests. In 1814 AD, British East India Company attacked to Nepal from 4 posts of Terai. At that time, Terai people who were victims of exploitation were preparing to revolt against the medieval cruelty and injustice behavior of Nepalese rulers. To revolt against injustice and exploitation, groups of unorganized people of East Terai helped the East India Company in war against Saha rulers in the name of revolution. Saha rulers of Nepal lost the war against East India Company and surrendered. Both parties signed in Sugauli Treaty on December 2nd, 1815 AD and declared the end of war. East India Company divided the Terai and provided some parts to Nepal. After getting the territory of Terai, Nepali government started to treat the Terai people as enemies. In 1816 AD, the colonial British army, then ruling over India, defeated Nepali forces. The then few landlords in Madhesh had supported the British during the war. But all Madhesis were then on labeled as followers of British and adversary of Nepali that also defamed them. The Article 7 of the Memorandum on Sugauli Treaty between the British and the then king on December 1816 stated that the Nepali government would not take any action against the people living in Madhesh, but many Madhesh dwellers were ill-treated, tortured, and punished on charge of treason. The consequences of the deception of some of the landlords were poured over the common Madhesis. During the time of Janga Bahadur Rana, he had gone to India leading his army of 3,000 to suppress the Indian movement, the Sipahi Mutiny against British rule, which occurred from 1857 to 1859 AD. British government presented some lands to Nepal. This land was provided as an award for the support of Ranas to British government to suppress the fighters for independence of India. Nepal government called that region Naya Muluk or New Region. After 1861 AD, with Janga Bahadur's order, people of Terai were made to pay money instead of grain as a tax. Rana rulers made one rule for people of hilly region and another for people of Terai origin. During the time of Janga Bahadur Rana, in Article Section 152 of Concerning Murder, Nepalese from hills could get bail for rupees 10 to 25, whereas Terai residents had to pay rupees 100. Terai residents had to get permission letter or visa to visit Kathmandu as if they were some foreigner. Only on Mahasivaratri, Terai residents along with Indians were allowed inside Kathmandu without any permit. Madhesi people contributed significantly to the democratic movement during 1951 AD, but they did not get what they expected from the state, that is, equal participation. In 1951 AD, Nepalese rulers conspired to displace Terai residents to control Terai land in the name of population distribution. After East India Company returned Terai to Nepal, Nepalese ruler wanted their control over Terai. So, they settled people from hills in Terai in the name of Birta and Guti. Maithalis or people from Terai started being neglected even on their own land. The indigenous people of Terai were displaced from their original land due to different departments, companies, projects and housing companies with resettlement plans. Many towns and cities were created in the name of king and royal family members. The indigenous people like Satar, Rajbangshi, Tharu, Dhimal, Jagat, Gangai and others were displaced and they had to go to India as refugees. Gradually, the time came when Maithili were labeled as Nepalese of Indian origin. In 1954 AD, the National Planning Commission recommended compulsion of Nepalese language for both official and teaching in schools where Hindi was used in Madhesh then. In 1956 AD, Dr. K.I. Singh's government banned teaching of Hindi, which split the population into pro-Hindi and against Hindi that led to the formation of committees to protect Hindi. Until 1958 AD, Terai residents had to get visa to visit Kathmandu. In 1959 AD, the first elected Prime Minister, B.P. Koirala, introduced Hindi in curriculum in Madhesh, but was revoked after the coup of King Mahendra and imposed Hamro Vasa, Hamro Vesh, Pran Bhanda Pyaro Cha, meaning our language and costumes are dear to us than our own life. In 1960s, to end the discrimination and exploitation against the indigenous people of Western Terai, Terai Liberation Front was established. As the Terai residents were deprived of citizenships and their land were being captured by Nepalese from hills, fighters from Terai Liberation Front decided to take up arms against the discrimination. They started an armed revolution with guerrilla war strategy. Following this, Nepalese government started to kill the leaders of the groups. In June 1963 AD, Nepalese police killed a leader, Ramji Misra. Similarly, in August 1967 AD, the chairman of the group, Raghunath Rai Yadav, was shot dead by the Royal Nepalese Army. Also, in August 1969 AD, another chairman, Satyadev Mani Tripathi, was shot dead in Nautunawa, border of Uttar Pradesh. Many organizations from Terai had revolted with or without arms against the atrocities of central rulers, but each time they were suppressed. After Communist Party of Nepal Maoists included the problems of Terai residents in their agenda and policies, Terai residents helped Communist Party Nepal Maoists for more than 8 years in their armed struggle against the government, but again became victims of disparity in the Communist Party of Nepal Maoist itself. Madhesh is divided into Maithili, Bhojpuri and Abadi in Eastern, Central and Western region respectively, along with Tharu in the mid and far western according to linguistics. Madheshi people include different castes or ethnic groups like Tharu, Yadav, Muslim, Teli, Chamar, Koyar, Brahman, Bhumihar, Amat, Mali, Tatma, Kanu, Rauniar, Rajdhobi, Tamauli, Katholania, Hajam, Sonar, Lohar, Tajpuria, Bantar, Jangar, Danuk, Rajbangshi, Meche, Satar, Dhimal, Musar, Dom, Dusar, etc. The Madheshi are predominantly Hindus with some Muslims, Buddhists and Christian. Even today, the Madheshis are not only barred from access to equal resources and opportunities, but also don't feel as mainstream Nepalese because of the way they are perceived, treated and presumed. Madheshis grow up being called or referred to as Madise, Marsya, Kale, Dhoti, Hapsi, Indian by the so-called true or genuine Nepalese. If Goddess Sita and Lord Buddha are from Nepal, in spite of belonging to Madhesh, it needs some common sense to call Madheshis as Indians and Indians as Madheshis. In fact, except those from the Tibet-Mongoloid races, all Nepalese had roots from India. The Karnataka dynasty kings ruled Kathmandu and the Ranas have migrated from Rajasthan in India. In Nepal, there are gender-specific discrimination, caste-based discrimination, and discrimination based on geographical location. There had been unannounced ban on Madheshis in Nepalese army since the time of King Prithvinarayan Saha. The mother tongue of Terai people is termed as foreign language. Thank you.